Hello. Today we are going to be talking to you about malapropism. Malapropism is the unintentionally humorous misuse or distortion of a word or phrase, especially the use of a word sounding somewhat like the one intended, but ludicrous in the context.
Here are some examples of malapropism found in literature. In Huckleberry Finn, Finn's aunt says, "I was almost putrefied with astonishment." She meant to say the word petrified instead of putrefied. In Juno and Pigcock, Captain Jack Boyle says, "I'm telling you, Joxer, the whole thing whirl in a terrible state of ochasis." He did not mean to say chassis, he meant to say chaos. In The Rivals, there's a character named Mrs. Malaprop. She is the character in which the word malapropism is derived from, because she has a tendency to replace words. She says, "Sir, you overpower me with good breeding. He's the very pineapple of politeness." These are all examples of malapropism. Malapropism can be used in literature to add a bit of humor, just like saying pineapple instead of pinnacle.
Now, let's move on to a real-life example. George W. Bush. I know what you're thinking. What does George W. Bush have to do with this? Well, you'll be surprised to know that our 43rd president was not the smartest crayon in the toolbox. In fact, Bush used malapropisms so often that they became commonly known as Bushisms. In August of 2000, he states, "We cannot let terrorists and rogue nations hold this nation hostile or hold our allies hostile," when he clearly confused it with the word hostage. He later states, "This is Preservation Month. I appreciate preservation. It's what you do when you run for president. You gotta preserve." This was during a speech given at a local elementary school during their Perseverance Month. Yikes, George. Yikes. Lastly, he said, "I'm really pleased with the organization and the thousands of South Carolinians that worked on my behalf, and I'm very gracious and humbled." George, I believe the word that you were looking for was grateful. Overall, malapropism isn't used very widely, at least not intentionally by most musicians, poets, etc. Authors potentially use it for character development and insight, but since it's so unintentional and relatively embarrassing, no one chooses to use it. So for review, malapropism, or a Bushism, is the unintentionally humorous misuse or distortion of a word or phrase, especially the use of a word sounding somewhat like the one intended, but with entirely illogical context.